The Nigerian Naira has depreciated further to 1,900 Naira to the dollar at the parallel section of the foreign exchange market. The Naira declined by 9.83% from the 1,730 Naira recorded on Monday. Currency traders, also known as Bureau de Change operators, quoted the buying rate at 1,850 Naira and the selling rate at 1,900 Naira, leaving a profit margin of 50 Naira. Well, Arise business anchor Boason Omofaye joins us now to discuss these stories and more. Well, let's start with the French and Indian farmers who have resumed their protest. What potential impact could these have on agricultural policies? Of course, Mr. Boason, I have to thank you for joining us on this.
Thank you so much, Tope and Hawa. I think the Indian farmers and the French farmers look to be singing from the same hymn page in terms of the low prices that they get. The shorter end of the carrot that they get for all their hard work. There are a few lessons from there, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But the whole idea is that the farmers who are at the bottom of the pyramid and at the end of the value chain, before it gets to my table, your table, those who are involved in the midstream part of the agriculture sector, are not getting real value for all their efforts, for the time that they spend, the hard labor, even though they use tractors and other modern technologies to get their agricultural produce done. But again, for whatever, it's not easy to produce food. And let's get that right. Whether you're using tractors, you still need manpower to plow them through different conditions. It's going to be very hot. Sometimes it could be cold. You have to harvest. You have to plant. You have to ensure that you weed control. You have to do pesticide use and other. So there's a whole lot involved in putting breakfast, lunch, or dinner on the table. So there's a whole lot that had to be done, and the farmers will want to be sure that when the produce gets down and the government of off-takers are taking this produce off them, that they get the basic minimum that they require to also live some measure of decent life. They need pesticides, they need herbicides, they need a couple of other inputs, seedlings and other things that they want to be subsidized in a way that will help them. But the government also come in. Then, of course, those tractors and whatever equipment need diesel and whatever form of fossil fuel to power them. And then they need to have healthcare insurance as well for the dangers involved in what they do. So there's insurance costs are involved. And then they would want to see that there are also climate issues to deal with as well. So the government on one side is trying to ensure that there is food sustainability, there is food security, and it doesn't get to the end users at a very highly elevated cost. So the government is caught between dealing with the farmers on one hand and dealing at the food banks, as it were, or what you call the stores. At the end of the day, try to make sure there's a bit of a balancing. Now, these folks have real products, agricultural products over there. So if you bring it back home to a country such as Nigeria and a number of African countries where we're struggling with the basic food necessities, now these folks are blocking the highways with tractors and equipment. If you ask Nigerian farmers today to block any highway, I'm not sure, with cutlasses and hoes, I'm sure 99% of them will just bring their cutlasses and hoes. There's hardly any equipment with which to block any highway or even to make any protest because they have basically nothing. They're working from hand to mouth. It's all still bare knuckles, on virtually speaking, on a daily basis, using sticks and other forms of mundane implements to ensure there's food production in Nigeria. And that tells me that the millions and billions of dollars that we need to invest in the agriculture, technology in agriculture, in terms of machinery, in terms of modern technology, whether you're using drones, whether you're using other forms of equipment to ensure the crops are well done and the entire value chain. We still have we're still far away from the desired level where we need to be. So do Nigerian farmers also require a better deal? Yes, they do. The agrarian farmers require that. They need to get a better deal. If you look at the level of food that is produced in the hinterlands in Nigeria, so much, but some folks just go there and pick up a bag of gari for like 3,000, 5,000, and then it moves to the next township or city, and it goes like 30, 40,000. But again, these folks who are the off-takers are taking risks. They got to meet all the kind of illegal checkpoints on the road. The vehicles used to convey these foods are very rickety, archaic, and what have you. Then they use petrol or diesel and all of that. So they're paying the farmers what you call liberal wages, not some form of living wages that can compensate for their 9 to 5, round the clock, the water, irrigation. They got to chase birds and other rodents away from the farms. They do use the children, women in particular, with kids on their back, all on the farms, see them everywhere. And they're doing this on a day-to-day, month by month, year by year, just to ensure that some of us who are in the cities have some gari to soak or to make about whatever it is we're doing. So it's a whole lot of work. So we need to pay attention to the agri sector and to farmers' plight, and we need to do that very quickly. And in places where you don't have so much of insecurity, like in France or India, that's a whole different ballgame for a country such as Nigeria to deal with. No talk of the plight of the farmers itself. So for them to even be able to put their boots on the ground on the farm or reap the harvest of their produce becomes very difficult, because some folks are demanding illegal and criminal enterprise monies from them to even harvest their own produce. So it's it's more than a double whammy for us on this side of the Atlantic.
Multi-dimensional issues.
Multi-dimensional. You got it correct.
But let's move on. The African Finance Corporation has just purchased a $40 million equity in the new Abuja hospital.
That's some good news.
We just
and I'm happy. I'm going to smile to that. I'm going to say this.
Smile about.
No. We got this, and this is really good news. It's so exciting. It just came out this afternoon. And the whole idea was that when we had the pandemic, the African Export-Import Bank worked with the African Union and a few other governments in Africa and said, look, we need to prepare for the next pandemic. So we need to be able to do vaccines on our own. We need to provide hospitals. We need to, look, we can stop this whole medical tourism that takes hundreds of millions of dollars out of FX and the central bank abroad. So whether it's in oncology, whatever it is, and therapy, whatever we'll be producing, you have 500 beds, that's what this will be, creating about 3,000 jobs, construction, hundreds of jobs when it's fully completed, over about a 6-year period. What African Finance Corporation has done, which of course Nigeria is one of the major shareholders of the African Finance Corporation, which is a Pan-African infrastructure financial institution, which is headquartered in Lagos, but a number of African countries are sovereign shareholders in that. So we are happy that we have Afrexim Bank and AFC midwife this, send the term sheet, $40 million to make sure that this project goes to completion. And perhaps, and I use the word very carefully, perhaps, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was chosen by the African Union as the Africa's healthcare champion, at the recent 37th Ordinary General Assembly of the African Union, which was just over the weekend. I think this is perhaps one of the reasons why he was chosen, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the African champion on healthcare. Because this AMCE, which is African Medical Center of Excellence, will be built in a few African countries. But Nigeria is the first place where Afrexim Bank is putting this down. Now, this is a direct investment dollar inflow into Nigeria from the EFC. So this $40 million comes to Nigeria. It does not go on our balance sheet as if it's coming in, but of course, to bring in the equipment, the building of the facility itself, because the facility will require cement and every form of building materials. Unfortunately, we have to import some of those building materials, so that doesn't make me happy on the other side. But again, we have to take something. At least the cement will be there, the local labor will be there, the entire structure that it needs will be physically be on ground in Nigeria. And then we can begin to see some level of modernization in healthcare happen in Africa, and supported by international agencies such as the Afrexim Bank and the Africa Finance Corporation. That is really good. Of course, Afrexim Bank is doing a few more others also in terms of laboratory testing for agricultural products, which is in Ogun State, which is one of the first set up in Africa to test products, whether it is cashew, cocoa, whatever you want to export, and you can go test it at the facility built with one of the biggest testing business solutions company in the world, which was commissioned, I think, last year, just before the last administration left office, I guess. So all of these, we're seeing some support coming through in agriculture and now in healthcare. in terms of putting the right hospital facility here. And it's not just hospital. It also has part of it is also research. For this $40 million, it's also to go into research. We need our universities, which is what we also need. We need our universities and research institutions in Nigeria to also be functional so that we can test ourselves for what is wrong with us. And our own people doing the testing and the research. That means that you have the person who is testing you is also in Nigeria or an African who understands you, perhaps has gone through the same thing, is in the laboratory here, and is also knowledgeable in tropical diseases and other issues that health related in Africa. So I think we're beginning to see some movement, even though they are early days yet, by the African Union and agencies around the African Union and African leaders trying to help us resolve some of the issues that we have on the continent. But for Nigeria, this is $40 million on the table in Abuja, which is in my village. But I wish. But again, that's just on the soft side. But again, this is $40 million for Nigeria in terms of the healthcare sector. I think is good. And I think this will spur and should spur other Nigerians in the diaspora. And I want to speak to them. Nigerians and physicians in the diaspora, whether they're in Canada, North America, Europe, wherever they are, to do a whole lot more investments in the healthcare sector in Nigeria. The more they come in and put boots on the ground, the more they will make certain government agencies become more responsible in providing energy, power. Because this sort of hospital will need power, for example. Are we going to be running this new hospital, the African Bank AMC hospital, on generator, diesel, or whatever? That's not sustainable. That's polluting the environment in the manner of speaking. So will this hospital be built via some form of clean energy? I would like to see what that will be, how it will happen, so that it will also make it more health-wise. Okay, in terms of the overall health that we're trying to achieve. Yeah, at least it's an hospital. So, and we can do that across the maternity homes, the all dispensaries, whatever we have across the country, if we just put our hearts to it at the states and local government levels. And I think this is part one of the things that the Ministry of Health and other attended agencies should mainstream.
Okay, so from that good news, to not so good news, Naira's continued depreciation. Of course, Naira has continued to depreciate. Well, but you're going to answer this question anyway. Yes. The Naira has continued to depreciate further. What urgent measures do you think the Nigerian government can take at this point to stabilize the exchange rate?
I'm going to repeat what I've heard and what I think some other folks have said. We need to do a few things very quickly. The Ministry of Finance needs to lead this from the front. And that is the truth, and with due respect to Mr. Wale Edno, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister. Look, we've gotten to a point in which the central bank alone cannot do this. We need to have the Ministry of Finance, the Debt Management Office, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, maybe the Budget Office and a few others come together, maybe with a few institutions, maybe the Securities and Exchange Commission and a few other institutions that can come together and structure certain instruments that can help us pull in funds in US dollar terms. For example, can we have a certain, for example, Kenya is looking at a certain program, a kind of an account within the banking system that will allow Kenyans in diaspora, whatever inflow they are bringing in, like goes into a bit of a savings account. Okay, and then the government through the treasury can use that. So it's not a domiciliary account within the country, but I'm saying that the treasury put that account together for the diaspora, Kenyans, and you can take whatever inflow comes into it, goes like into an account as it were, but the treasury can use it as a liquidity of FX in the country. We need to put some very creative financial markets instruments out there right now. I am not sure what is going on. I haven't heard any communication from the Ministry of Finance. But do we need to be a bit more creative in that? We need to bring some assets to the market and very quickly. And we can look on the assets on the ledger of both the BPE and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, that is warehousing government. Then we'll look at the Sovereign Wealth Fund. All of these folks should be in the same room 24/7. Some folks have suggested we need to have a deal room put together. What is a deal room? Like what the AFDB has, the deal room for the African Investment Forum, in which you can have a small deal room and have those who are deep pockets in dollar terms locally and abroad, including folks in diaspora, come in and say, look, I'm thinking about a few projects in Nigeria and I want to pick this up in US dollar terms. That should also be have the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, the NIPC, also in the same room into that. Then we can open up the books of the NIPC for those who have made promises and pledges in terms of foreign direct investments in Nigeria, how soon they can fulfill those promises, and what are the few things we need to do very quickly to get them to bring in the money. If we need to change some legislation for those who want to set up an automobile factory or they want to set up whatever, can we quickly make some quick legislation? Since we have this hand-to-hand share between the executive and the legislature, and we can quickly put some pen to paper, change some legislation, or revise some, or incentivize others, so that we can quickly unlock this money to come in. And the speed at which we need to do this is very key. No one is sure whether the US and a few other big central banks around the world will cut interest rates and when they will do it this year and by what. Inflation is not out of the woods yet. For the lower for longer, whatever that terminology is, it doesn't seem to be working. Japan went into recession. UK is in recession. Some folks say that the US will lead us out there, but who's really sure? China is buckling, the dragon is emitting less fire, as it were. So the whole big structure of the global economy that we lean on in terms of our relationships are not really so much in a very nice shape. Well, speaking, if we want to speak the truth to ourselves. So we need, therefore, to be very quick in addressing our issues. It seems to be taking much longer. This is over the end of February. We're looking at the central bank next week, whether it's to move interest rate up or down, but what margin, whatever. Then we are done with the first quarter of the year. Last year, this time, we're talking about the elections. We're just 1 year into the elections. And the news is tightening more painfully around every part of every Nigerian. So the speed at which the Ministry of Finance work on this, and I'm calling out the Ministry of Finance as a business journalist, and this is my personal opinion, that the Ministry of Finance needs to show us very quickly the work that's going on that can be addressed, creatively speaking, to creatively address the issue of the FX and the exchange rate beyond chasing Aboki FX, those who do roadside exchange rates with guns and whatever arrests. I don't support illegal and black market of anything because I don't want to buy fake black market drugs because I don't want to get sick and die. So everything that is black market is a problem, whether we like it or not. So let's be true here. And this is not whether you're supporting the government. Anything that's a black market is never good. Black market human organs is not good. Black market education is not good. Black market real estate will defraud you or you lose money or you lose both. So that's a whole lot. So I don't like black markets, even though I'm a black man. But the truth is this. I don't know who coined the word black market. But again, anything black market does not bode well. So including the black market FX. But how the government will deal with it, a number of African countries are dealing with that. Tunisia, Algeria, Zimbabwe, Kenya, whatever. If you don't have the right environment and the right policies and the right inflow, those are the kind of things that reduces the existence of a black market. Or in everything, whether it is in drugs, pharmaceuticals, whatever, healthcare, education, whatever. We can reduce all of that when we do good things and we're consistent in our policies and actions moving forward. So 1,900, will it get tougher? Let's prepare that it will likely get tougher. But let's also believe that the government can look itself straight in the mirror and perhaps go back to the drawing board to some of these policies and maybe rework them or give us some more meaningful and tangible policies and actions that we think can work. And they can borrow a leaf from a few of our neighbors to the left, to the right, to the Southern Africa, and a few others on how to quickly unlock that. If you look at a country like Tanzania, for example, what's President Suluhu doing that Tanzania, the Zambian kwacha, look, Zambia was sinking 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Today, Zambia is outperforming Nigeria's currency by how much? What's the entire Zambian economy, even with its mines and mineral resources and whatever, that they've gotten that right. Address with the creditors, be very clear, be very honest and sincere with where you're going, and deal with the situations. So we can get a whole lot better if we are ready to do things right and do them very quickly. And the final point is on that very quickly. And don't just make decisions where we wake up on one side of the bed. I think we should be a little bit more structured in the way of how we announce policies, what we think it through, and most importantly, think about the unintended consequences before we put things on the table. And that's the most important, not the intended consequences. The unintended consequences is the most important thing to consider. And it doesn't look like some of these were a little bit well thought through. And now we're dealing with most of the fallout. Do we know the economy was weak? Yes, we all knew the economy was weak 8 years, 10 years, 20 years before. The inherent weaknesses, structurally speaking, are all embedded. What we have now is just like an HIV. It used to, yeah, oh, well, sorry, it's not HIV, the AIDS. Because the HIV is the first thing. It just stayed there for many years, hanging around, and then becomes a full-blown virus, and then everything becomes contagious. Such a situation now that everyone is grappling at the straw in a manner of speaking. We shouldn't get to this point. But now that we're here, as a country, we will have to join hands to deal with it. I want state governments to do a whole lot more. I want to see key government ministries step up to the plate. Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, Ministry of Works, in Finance, those that housing, for example, they need to come in. The housing market need to rev up. The state government need to support the federal government. Agriculture also have to be part of it, and manufacturing. So we have a few pillars that need to come very quickly and have meeting on a daily basis and use what they call the private sector approach to some of the governance issues we have. Right now, we are still using the old template of a civil service. Whatever.
It's not working.
It doesn't look like it's going to work. We need new thinking, we need new action.
Some very glaring, thoughtful anecdotes that you gave us there. Thank you so much, as always, for coming.
My pleasure having me on Newsday. Thank you so much.
Issues with us,
I'll get back to business.
Let's
get back to business.